Corruption seems to be a hot-button issue for the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. Over the 13 years of Xi Jinping's rule, countless corrupt officials have been taken down across various sectors, including film, arts, television, technology, finance, banking, organized crime, and even casinos. From this, the public might believe that fighting corruption is the CCP's #1 priority. However, there's something puzzling. For the past 25 years, there has been an ongoing crackdown in China, mobilizing a massive portion of the national budget, up to 25% of GDP annually during 1999 to 2004. This campaign hasn't stopped, and it reveals that the CCP hates this group even more than it selectively opposes corruption. Who are they? Take a look at this video. This footage shows CCP flag-holding thugs harassing Brazilian Falun Gong practitioners protesting in front of the G20 summit in Rio. Xi Jinping's motorcade is expected to pass by, and the local Chinese embassy has been tasked with ensuring Falun Gong practitioners do not appear there. Falun Gong is in fact the CCP's #1 enemy. However, not everyone labeled as an enemy of the CCP is bad. History shows that the CCP routinely oppresses human rights lawyers, religious groups, and dissidents with alarming frequency. Today's video focuses specifically on Falun Gong and explains why the CCP spares no expense in its effort to suppress this group. Falun Gong and its opposition to the CCP's ideology. Falun Gong is essentially a spiritual practice rooted in the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. These values guide practitioners in their daily lives. In addition to cultivating moral character, practitioners perform 5 gentle and peaceful exercises. When the practice was introduced to the public in 1992, it quickly gained popularity, attracting 100 million followers. Many found joy and significant improvements in their physical and mental well-being through the practice. However, the core values of Falun Gong are seen as fundamentally at odds with the CCP's ideology. China has long been criticized as a country that tramples on human rights. The 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown demonstrated the CCP's determination to prevent any movement that could challenge the party's authority or ideology. Groups like Falun Gong, with their faith in something beyond the CCP's values, represent a direct threat to the regime. In 1999, then-President Jiang Zemin launched a widespread crackdown on Falun Gong. His motive was simple: jealousy of the influence Falun Gong had over the population. Within the party, it was well understood that whenever people began to seek change, whether advocating for democracy or embracing a belief system other than communism, they started to lose faith in the party. This loss of faith undermines the CCP's credibility, something the party is determined to prevent. Since the Cultural Revolution, the Chinese government has worked relentlessly to instill a philosophy of struggle and brainwash citizens, encouraging them to prioritize materialism over spirituality. Temples were destroyed, severing people's belief in deities and the concept of karma. As a result, people felt free to commit immoral acts without fear of consequences. This cultural shift paved the way for corruption. Officials hoarding billions in wealth, filling their homes with gold and jewels, and engaging in countless extramarital affairs. By focusing society solely on material wealth, the CCP found it easier to control the population. After all, in a society where honesty, kindness, and moral responsibility prevail, the CCP's deception and internal power struggles would have no place. For Jiang, the choice was clear: crack down on Falun Gong. China remains the only country that persecutes Falun Gong. Today, Falun Gong is practiced in over 114 countries worldwide. Yet the Chinese regime continues its brutal suppression of the group. This includes imprisonment, beatings, torture, live organ harvesting, and even the plastination of bodies. Why do so few people around the world hear about this brutal persecution by the Chinese government? We know that China doesn't like when other world leaders talk about human rights abuses in China. Here is a video that just happened at the G20 meeting on the sidelines between British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Xi Jinping. Taiwan, South China Sea, and our shared interest in Hong Kong. We are concerned by reports of Jimmy Lai's deteriorating health in prison. When Keir Starmer mentioned human rights and the jailed reporter, owner of Apple Daily, Jimmy Lai, the Chinese staff started to usher the reporters out of the room, saying, that application, now we have to follow the legal process and timeline. In fact, the CCP has used human rights as a bargaining tool in their international relations. Essentially, if other countries' leaders want access to China's market, they're pressured to stop discussing human rights issues in China. As a result, there has been little progress on addressing human rights abuses in China over the past few decades. This tactic has also been applied to Falun Gong. The CCP has made it clear that discussing Falun Gong is off-limits during international meetings. Because of this restriction, Western media often rely on information about Falun Gong from Chinese state media, the same sources controlled by the CCP. This ultimately serves the CCP's agenda, as it ensures their narrative dominates. The comprehensive campaign to suppress Falun Gong abroad. According to the Epoch Times, in October 2022, Chinese leader Xi Jinping held a secret meeting instructing top state officials overseeing political, intelligence, and influence operations on a new strategy to target the Falun Gong spiritual group internationally. The focus of the Chinese regime's latest anti-Falun Gong strategy is launching disinformation campaigns via social media influencers and Western media outlets, and using the American legal system to go after companies started by Falun Gong practitioners. Details of the 2022 secret meeting were provided by Yuan Hongbing, a Chinese legal scholar living in exile in Australia who has maintained connections within the Chinese regime's top political circles. His account is based on information he received from two sources: an individual from a veteran CCP family who now opposes Xi, and an insider with knowledge speaking out for reasons of conscience. Previously, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the 610 Office, an organization tasked with suppressing Falun Gong, were responsible for these activities abroad. Under Xi Jinping's reforms, the Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission, which oversees all law enforcement, took over coordination both domestically and internationally. In this new structure, the Ministry of Public Security, with its 2 million officers, leads efforts within China. The Ministry of State Security, China's spy agency, targets Falun Gong overseas. And the United Front Work Department, known for managing international influence, and relevant divisions of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, assist in these operations. Xi instructed officials to attack Falun Gong with lawfare and disinformation, deploying social media and media with no traceable ties to the CCP. He told them to direct their energy towards smearing Falun Gong's founder, Li Hongzhi, and to discrediting Falun Gong-founded media through inside operatives. Days after the party congress, the Ministry of State Security got a new leader, Chen Yixin. Chen is personally driving the campaign against Falun Gong overseas, aiming to resolve the Falun Gong issue by the end of the year. Overseas, Chen's ministry has a number of networks that can be readily deployed. A letter obtained by the Epoch Times from March 2021 shows that the agency and the Ministry of Public Security collectively oversee an anti-Falun Gong North America office. An individual named Wu Shuhua was named the director of the office, according to the letter. Aside from the North America office, the regime has embedded an extra-legal network of agents in other ways. In 2023, the FBI arrested 2 CCP agents, Lu Jianwang, 61, and Chen Jinping, 59, who operated a secret police station in Manhattan under the cover of a pro-Chinese civil organization. What's more, the DOJ and the FBI had also arrested and charged 2 individuals by the name of John Chen and also Lin Feng. The 2 agents were charged for conspiring against the headquarters of Shenyun, which is called Dragon Springs. According to the DOJ filing, John Chen, 71, of the People's Republic of China and Los Angeles, California, and Lin Feng, a Chinese citizen and resident of Los Angeles, California, pleaded guilty to acting as unregistered agents of China and bribing an IRS agent in connection with a plot to target US-based practitioners of Falun Gong. In previous years, Chinese embassies and consulates around the world have written to theaters to pressure them to stop Shenyun from performing. When the pressure was unsuccessful, they threatened to shoot up Dragon Springs. When that didn't really work, they slashed the tires on the tour buses of Shenyun Performing Arts. And also more bomb threats to both the theater and the headquarters through things like email or letters. One email wrote in Mandarin that Multiple C4 plastic bombs have been placed in various locations in the Dragon Springs Temple at the Shawangunk Ridge, upstate New York. If you don't want to see the Dragon Springs Temple to be turned into ruins, then transfer $58 million before 3 p.m. tomorrow to my PayPal account. If the money hasn't arrived by 3 o'clock, we will detonate the bombs. Here's 3 of the Shenyun dancers on their YouTube channel talking about this. We actually received a bomb threat while we were performing, and what they've done in the past is the Chinese consulate would send letters to the theater administrators to tell them not to let us perform. The theater administrator received a letter from someone with a Chinese name. The sender's name was written in Chinese, and they said that they planted bombs in the theater, and if you let the show start, they would detonate those bombs. So what is Shenyun, and why is the CCP so afraid of Shenyun? The deepest fear of the CCP. The CCP sees Shenyun as very dangerous because it seeks to revive traditional Chinese culture. Trevor Loudon, an expert on communist influence in the West, told the Epoch Times they want to portray Chinese culture as socialist. The Chinese regime has long used false traditional culture as a tool for propaganda and soft power. This is why an organization like Shenyun, which genuinely showcases traditional Chinese culture, poses such a challenge to their narrative. Shenyun's slogan, China before communism, highlights the rich 5,000-year history of China that predates the CCP's rule, directly contradicting the CCP's message that Chinese culture and identity are inseparable from their leadership. The truth is, China had a thriving and rich culture long before the CCP took power. In fact, the CCP actively destroyed much of that heritage during the 1960s Cultural Revolution. For them to now claim they are the guardians of traditional values is absurd. This same distortion extends to their stance on democracy. The CCP dismisses Taiwan's democracy as chaotic and insists that Chinese people don't need Western-style democracy. However, Taiwan clearly demonstrates that a democratic system allows people to live far better than those under authoritarian rule in mainland China. Shenyun, therefore, represents a major threat to the CCP. It undermines their propaganda by reminding people that a vibrant, authentic Chinese culture existed and thrived without the CCP. It shows that a future without the CCP is not only possible, but also rooted in the country's true heritage. Over the years, Shenyun's popularity has soared. The company now performs in 200 cities worldwide, drawing over 1 million audience members annually. Its performances have been widely praised by audiences around the globe. Actress Cate Blanchett described it as exquisitely beautiful, while author and motivational speaker Tony Robbins called it magnificent. Before escaping to the United States, many of Shenyun's artists experienced religious persecution firsthand in China for their belief in Falun Gong. A show about traditional Chinese culture is threatening to the Chinese regime, and members of that performance are Falun Gong practitioners. Obviously, that double threat makes Falun Gong the #1 enemy of the Chinese Communist Party. What is the U.S. stance on the persecution of Falun Gong? As revealed in a recent special report by the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong, WOIPFG, senior officials of the CCP have intensified their attacks on Falun Gong and Shenyun abroad. The report outlines the CCP's various schemes, including activating all undercover operatives, CCP agents, and even deploying high-ranking intelligence officers embedded within Falun Gong. At critical moments, these agents are instructed to betray the organization, aiming to deliver a fatal blow to Falun Gong and U.S. officials who support it, with the ultimate goal of banning Falun Gong in the United States. This aligns with what Republican Congressman Scott Perry, who proposed the Falun Gong Protection Act, stated: "A hostile nation attempting to manipulate our federal government to punish their ideological opponents is completely over the line and deeply troubling." He also described the CCP as essentially a criminal organization controlling a nation. If the CCP implements a new suppression strategy against Falun Gong in the US, he suggested that shutting down consulates and other diplomatic facilities should certainly be considered. Democratic Congressman James McGovern added that the CCP has used extremely brutal methods to persecute groups like Falun Gong and others in China. Everyone needs to stand up and condemn these actions, he said. The U.S. must hold the CCP accountable for its transnational repression to ensure that American residents do not live in fear of any foreign government. Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany expressed deep concern over the CCP's moves. He previously introduced a bill calling for the closure of the Chinese consulate in New York and the expulsion of Chinese diplomatic officials. Tiffany emphasized that he hopes Congress can crack down on the CCP's multinational intimidation campaigns, expel disguised spies, and shut down their offices. That's all for today's episode. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. By the way, if you've never heard of Shenyun, or if you've come across rumors about the show, why not experience it for yourself? Thank you, and see you next time.